Keanu Reeves steps into a luxurious restaurant nestled in the heart of the city, his simple, wrinkled clothes giving the impression of an ordinary day. Choosing a quiet table, he attempts to blend in as the soft glow of crystal chandeliers bathes the elegant space. Yet, before he can even place an order, a waitress approaches, her expression laced with disdain and her posture brimming with arrogance. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she sneers, her sarcastic tone loud enough to catch the attention of other diners. What follows leaves everyone in the restaurant stunned and uncovers a truth that shifts everything. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're tuning in from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, and remember, tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we'll have another special story for you. The Lumiere restaurant, perched on one of Beverly Hills' most prestigious avenues, was a symbol of sophistication. Its expansive windows showcased views of neon-lit streets and slow-moving luxury sports cars. Inside, every detail was meticulously designed to impress. Lumiere wasn't just a restaurant. It was a destination for those who wanted to see and be seen. Ashley, one of Lumiere's most seasoned waitresses, moved through the dining room with practiced confidence, her polished bun and tailored uniform amplifying her air of professionalism. For her, working here was a privilege, a badge of honor she proudly mentioned at every opportunity. But Ashley's pride often veered into arrogance. She had a knack for quickly judging patrons, mentally sorting them by their attire, demeanor, and overall appearance. Some people just don't belong here, she often thought. The restaurant's glass doors opened smoothly, and a man entered. He wore faded jeans, a plain shirt, and a well-worn jacket, comfortable but devoid of any luxurious branding. His demeanor was understated, almost invisible, as he approached the reception desk. Despite being one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, Keanu Reeves preferred a life far removed from the extravagant glitter of Beverly Hills. In that moment, he appeared to be just another ordinary diner. Ashley was deep in conversation about a VIP reservation when she noticed him. She stopped abruptly, her eyes narrowing as she took in his unassuming appearance. With an unmistakable air of disdain, she tilted her head, her gaze lingering on his scuffed boots. "Good evening," she said flatly, her forced smile vanishing almost as quickly as it appeared. "I'd like a table, please," Keanu replied, his tone polite and composed. Ashley raised an eyebrow, her expression bordering on disbelief. It was as if his request was utterly absurd. "Are you sure you're in the right place? This is a very exclusive restaurant," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Unfazed, Keanu responded with his usual calm. "Yes, this is the place." Ashley let out a quick, incredulous laugh and shook her head. "All right, just a moment. I need to check something." Without bothering to mask her annoyance, she marched to the reception office, typing his name into the reservation system with an exaggerated flair. When nothing came up, she rolled her eyes and returned, visibly irritated. "As I suspected, you don't have a reservation," she said, her voice heavy with sarcasm. "We do have a few tables available, but just so you know, this isn't a casual dining spot." Keanu's demeanor remained unchanged. "I'd like to dine here," he said, his tone steady and composed. Ashley let out an exaggerated sigh, snatching a menu with unnecessary force. "Fine, but I'll have to seat you in a suitable area. Follow me." She led him briskly through the restaurant without a glance back. Instead of selecting a central table where the golden glow of chandeliers enhanced the ambience, she guided him to a dimly lit corner near the kitchen. The clatter of dishes and muted staff chatter created an entirely different atmosphere, one that starkly contrasted with the rest of the dining room. "Here you go," she said, dropping the menu onto the table with a thud. "This table should be perfect for you. It's nice and private." Keanu glanced at the table, then back at Ashley, his slight smile never faltering. "Thank you," he said, his voice calm. As Ashley walked away, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for a nearby couple to hear, "He won't last 5 minutes. Bet he'll leave as soon as he opens the menu." Across the dining room, Keanu quietly opened the menu, scanning its contents with deliberate ease. The soft melody of live music filled the space, but his serene demeanor suggested that nothing could disrupt his peace. From her vantage point, Ashley watched, a smug smile on her face, fully expecting him to leave at any moment. She crosses her arms, her eyes narrowing as if trying to determine whether he's being sarcastic or simply clueless. "You're welcome," she replies, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases." But since nothing's booked tonight, you can have it. Spinning on her heels, she walks away before he has a chance to respond. When Ashley returns to take his order, her attitude becomes even crueler. She pulls out her notepad with an exaggerated flourish, casting a cold, uninterested glance at Keanu. "Have you decided what you'd like?" she asks, her tone laced with boredom. "Or would you prefer a recommendation?" Keanu calmly looks at the menu and points to one of the most expensive main courses. "I'd like to try this one," he says. Ashley stifles a laugh, covering her mouth as if to hide a snide remark. "Oh, of course, the filet de Rossini," she says, her tone condescending. "A classic dish. Just to confirm, sir, you do know this costs $350, right?" Keanu nods, his composure unshaken. "Yes, it sounds wonderful." Tilting her head, Ashley's lips curl into a malicious smile. "All right then," she says. "Just so there's no confusion later, I suggest you double-check the prices. We wouldn't want any unpleasant surprises." Unbothered, Keanu replies calmly, "I'm certain." Ashley sighs dramatically, scribbling down the order as though it's a monumental effort. "Very well, as you wish. But I should warn you, our chef prefers dishes like this to be appreciated by those who truly understand fine dining. Let's hope it meets your expectations." She turns abruptly, but pauses to look back. "Oh, and one more thing, the minimum tip here is 20%. Keep that in mind while you enjoy." As Keanu waits, he remains unruffled by Ashley's attempts to make him uncomfortable. He glances around, admiring the elegant decor and the soothing performance of the pianist. When the appetizer finally arrives, Ashley sets the plate down with an unnecessary force that causes it to slide slightly across the table. "Here's your appetizer. I hope you enjoy it, or at least know what you're eating," she says with a mocking smile. Keanu thanks her politely. "Thank you." Leaning in slightly, Ashley seems intent on provoking a reaction. "You know, a lot of customers who order this dish end up not liking it. It's not exactly mainstream, but I think you'll manage. Good luck." Keanu looks up at her with the same calm expression. "It looks excellent. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated by her inability to elicit any negative response, Ashley storms off, muttering something to a coworker. "That guy won't even make it to the main course. He'll ask for the check as soon as he sees the bill." Meanwhile, Keanu continues eating his appetizer at a leisurely pace. From across the room, Ashley observes him with arms crossed, a malicious grin spreading across her face. "I bet he's going to ask for tap water. These types always do," she remarks to another staff member, who pretends not to hear her. However, an elderly man at a nearby table continues to watch. Raising his wine glass, he silently toasts in Keanu's direction, to which Keanu responds with a slight nod and a smile. Dinner has only just begun, but Ashley's growing disdain won't go unnoticed for much longer. After taking Keanu's order, Ashley decides to teach him a lesson. Instead of promptly sending it to the kitchen, she focuses her attention on other patrons she deems more deserving. She stops to chat with an elegant couple at a central table, laughs exaggeratedly at a joke from another guest, and even delivers a cocktail to a table that isn't hers. Meanwhile, time drags on as Keanu waits patiently. To provoke him further, Ashley repeatedly walks past his table, pretending to be busy. Whenever Keanu glances her way, she quickly averts her eyes and hurries by as if too occupied to notice him. After a long wait, Keanu is approached by an elderly man who has been observing the situation. With neatly combed white hair and a navy blue suit, the man approaches with a kind smile. "Good evening, young man. I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but I've noticed you've been overlooked," he says, his tone polite yet firm. Keanu smiles back. "Good evening. Don't worry, it's fine." The elderly man chuckles softly and leans in, lowering his voice. "You know, being treated like this can be a test of patience. But I must say, keeping your composure is a true sign of strength." Before Keanu can reply, Ashley appears, interrupting the conversation. "Sir, is there something I can help you with?" she asks, her voice more polished than usual, but with an undercurrent of authority. "I wouldn't want you to disturb our customer." The elderly man narrows his eyes slightly, but keeps his composure. "Don't worry, Mississippi. I was just greeting this gentleman. It's rare to see someone so serene." Ashley sighs dramatically, gesturing toward the man's table. "Well, perhaps you should return to your table and enjoy your dinner," she says, her impatience clear. Keanu observes the interaction, his expression calm yet thoughtful. "Thank you for coming over," he says to the elderly man, nodding slightly. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Before delivering the dish, Ashley made a point of stopping in the kitchen to chat with the chefs, leaving the plate sitting under the warming lamp. She then returned to the dining room to attend to another table, completely ignoring the ready meal. When she finally brought it out, she placed it on Keanu's table with a brisk gesture. "Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it," she said, her tone dripping with irony. "Oh, and if you don't like it, let us know. We can always adjust to something more affordable." Keanu thanked her with the same calm demeanor as before. "It looks excellent. Thank you." Ashley gave a cynical smile and leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for him to hear clearly. "Are you sure? It's a very sophisticated dish. Might be a bit much for someone who's not used to it." "I'm sure," Keanu replied serenely. "Thank you for your concern." Frustrated by her inability to provoke a reaction, Ashley quickly walked away. At the bar, she vented to a coworker who was visibly trying to ignore her remarks. "He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable," she said with a laugh, placing an empty glass on the counter. "I bet he doesn't even know what he's eating. It's always the same with these types. They come here to feel important, but end up making fools of themselves." The coworker forced a polite smile, visibly uncomfortable. "Maybe he just wants to have dinner, Ashley. Maybe we should treat him like any other customer." Ashley stared at him incredulously. "Like any other customer? Did you see the boots he's wearing? He doesn't belong here. Frankly, if he can't handle it, he shouldn't have walked through the door." Meanwhile, the couple who had been observing the scene earlier whispered to each other. "She's awful," the woman said, shaking her head. "He's being so polite, and she keeps trying to humiliate him." "I agree," the man frowned. "It's disgraceful. I think we should say something to the manager." At his table, Keanu calmly finished his main course, glancing around and noticing the sympathetic looks of other patrons. Yet, he didn't seem the least bit bothered. When Ashley returned to clear his plate, her expression remained filled with disdain. "So how was the dish? Did it meet your expectations?" she asked, flashing a fake smile. Keanu looked her straight in the eye and replied, "It was excellent, thank you. Please tell the chefs they did an impeccable job." Raising her eyebrows in surprise, Ashley realized she couldn't provoke any complaints or irritation. As she walked away, she muttered loudly enough to be heard, "He might be smiling now, but let's see if he still is when the bill comes." Seated at the table, Keanu observed the room with a slight smile, his demeanor calm and composed. His gaze suggested the moment to act was drawing closer. Ashley, increasingly frustrated, decided to escalate her provocations. After serving him the coffee he had requested, she deliberately spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "You know, it's hard to maintain standards when just anyone thinks they can walk in," she said to a colleague, casting a pointed glance in Keanu's direction. The colleague, visibly uncomfortable, tried to change the subject, but Ashley pressed on. "That's why we have a reservations policy, to avoid situations like this." Several patrons began paying attention, some frowning, others whispering among themselves. The couple observing the situation looked outraged. "This is outrageous," the woman murmured, placing her hand on her chest. "She's trying to humiliate the man in public." The elderly man at another table sipped his wine, watching the scene with disapproval. "This has gone too far," he muttered under his breath. Keanu, still seated calmly, surveyed the room without a hint of irritation. His serene demeanor seemed to unsettle Ashley even more, as she now felt the growing scrutiny of other patrons. A well-dressed woman at a nearby table commented to her companion, "He must be someone important to stay this calm. Anyone else would have left by now. Or maybe he's just stronger than she realizes," her companion replied, casting a curious glance at Keanu. Determined to provoke a reaction, Ashley returned to Keanu's table with a sarcastic smile. "I hope you're enjoying your experience," she said. "After all, it's always interesting to have different kinds of people here. It adds a unique touch to the atmosphere." Fixing her with a steady gaze, Keanu finally responded, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Different? Could you explain what you mean by that?" Ashley let out a short, nervous laugh, trying to maintain her composure. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way. It's just that, well, our clientele typically has a more traditional profile. It's rare to see someone with your style here." The room fell silent as nearby diners stopped their conversations, clearly tuning into the unfolding scene. Ashley seemed pleased with the attention, believing she had control of the situation. Keanu stayed silent for a moment, holding her gaze with an expression firm but devoid of anger. Finally, he spoke. "You're right. Perhaps I should handle this differently. Ashley blinked, confused. Before she could respond, the restaurant manager appeared, a middle-aged man with impeccable posture and an air of authority. Sensing the tension in the room, his expression changed when his eyes landed on Keanu. "Mr. Reeves," the manager exclaimed with respect. "I wasn't aware you were visiting us today. Please let me know how I can assist you." Ashley's face turned pale as she glanced between the manager and Keanu, utterly bewildered. Keanu turned to the manager, offering a slight smile. "Thank you, but I'd just like to have a brief conversation with your staff, if that's not a problem." First, she stopped in the kitchen to chat with the chefs, leaving the dish under the warming lamp. Then, she returned to the dining room to attend another table, completely ignoring the ready plate. When she finally brought the dish out, she placed it on Keanu's table with a brusque gesture. "Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it," she said, her tone dripping with irony. "Oh, and if you don't like it, please let us know. We can always adjust it to something more affordable." Keanu thanked her with the same calm demeanor as before. "It looks excellent. Thank you." Ashley gave a cynical smile and leaned in slightly, lowering her voice just enough for him to hear clearly. "Are you sure? It's a very sophisticated dish. It might be difficult for someone who's not used to it." "I'm sure," Ku replied serenely. "Thank you for your concern." Frustrated that she couldn't provoke any negative reaction from him, Ashley walked away quickly. At the bar, she commented to a coworker who was unsuccessfully trying to ignore her remarks. "He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable," she said with a laugh, placing an empty glass on the counter. "I bet he doesn't even know what he's eating. It's always the same with these types. They come here to feel important, but end up making fools of themselves." Her coworker forced a smile, visibly uncomfortable. "Maybe he just wants to have dinner, Ashley. Maybe we should treat him like any other customer." She stared at him incredulously. "Like any other customer? Did you see the boots he's wearing? He doesn't belong here. Frankly, if he can't handle it, he shouldn't have walked through the door." Meanwhile, the couple who had been observing the scene earlier whispered to each other. "She's awful," the woman said, shaking her head. "He's being so polite, but she keeps trying to humiliate him." "I agree," the man frowned. "It's disgraceful. I think we should say something to the manager." Back at his table, Keanu calmly finished his main course. He glanced around, noticing the sympathetic looks of other patrons, but he didn't appear the least bit bothered. When Ashley returned to clear the plate, her expression was still filled with disdain. "So how was the dish? Did it meet your expectations?" she asked with a fake smile. Keanu looked her straight in the eyes and replied, "It was excellent, thank you. Please tell the chefs they did an impeccable job."